You come home after the worst day of your life. You sit on the floor, back against the couch, and you start talking. Not to anyone in particular, just out loud. And your cat walks over, sits a few feet away, facing you directly, and stares at you with those slow, blinking eyes. And something inside you breaks open in the best possible way. Because it genuinely felt like they understood every single word. But here's what nobody tells you. What's actually happening inside your cat's mind in that moment is far more extraordinary than you think. And the science behind it will completely change the way you see your cat. Forever, welcome to Feline Mind. If you're new here, hit subscribe. Right now, we go deep into the science of what your cat is. Really. Thinking, feeling, and experiencing. You don't want to miss what's coming. So when you talk to your cat like a human, what is your cat actually thinking? Let's find out. Point 1. What your cat actually hears. Before we can understand what your cat thinks, when you talk to them, we need to completely reset how we picture their reality. Because their reality is built on an entirely different sensory architecture than ours. Humans are visual creatures first. We build our understanding of the world mostly through what we see. Cats are different. Cats are primarily acoustic and olfactory beings. Their entire map of reality is constructed through smell and sound. Now, cats and humans share a similar hearing range. At the low end, we can both detect sounds starting around 20 hertz. But while human hearing tops out at around 20,000 hertz, a cat can hear up to 64,000 hertz. They hear a frequency range that is almost entirely invisible to us. The high-pitched rustle of a mouse in the wall, the ultrasonic hum of electronic devices, the exact moment your footsteps change rhythm. As you approach the front door, from 3 floors away, their ears are not passive receivers. They are active instruments. Cats have 32 muscles controlling each ear independently. They can swivel, tilt, and rotate each ear like a radar dish, triangulating the exact origin of a sound with extraordinary precision. This is not a cute quirk. This is the result of millions of years of evolution as solitary hunters, where sound meant the difference between eating and starving. So when you sit down and start talking to your cat, they are not passively listening. They are actively scanning. They are receiving and processing a massive amount of acoustic information that we are completely unaware of. But here is the part that will change how you speak to your cat for the rest of your life. Research published in the journal Animal Cognition showed that cats process human speech in a remarkably discriminating way. They can distinguish their owner's voice from a stranger's voice with high accuracy, and they can tell when their owner is speaking directly to them versus speaking to another human. Think about what that means. Your cat is not just hearing sound. They are performing a sophisticated filtering operation, separating your voice from all other voices and separating speech directed at them from speech directed elsewhere. They have a brain architecture specifically tuned to human vocal patterns. No other domesticated species shows quite this same. combination of selective attention and vocal recognition. So when you talk to your cat, something real is happening in their mind. Not the full human linguistic experience, obviously, but a genuine recognition that this specific sound pattern, is meant for me. Which raises a fascinating question. If they recognize when you're speaking to them, what exactly are they hearing? Point 2. The power of your voice and your cat's memory. Let's start with a number. Cats can learn to recognize and respond to between 20 and 50 individual words and phrases. According to research by Dr. Mikel Delgado, and some exceptional cats have been documented with vocabularies approaching 100 words. One cat named Nyanko, studied by researchers in Japan, demonstrated the ability to distinguish her own name from similar sounding words and to respond appropriately to specific commands. She wasn't just recognizing sounds. She was building functional associations. She understood that certain sounds predicted certain outcomes. But here is what most people miss. The majority of cats are not primarily listening to the words. They are listening to something far more complex and far more intimate. The emotional fingerprint of your voice. Your voice has a unique acoustic signature. It's not just your pitch or your cadence. It's the specific way your voice softens. When you're talking just to them, the particular quality it takes on. When you're relaxed and content versus when you're rushing or distracted. The almost imperceptible warmth that enters your tone when you're genuinely happy to see them. Cats read all of this constantly, automatically, and with extraordinary accuracy. They build what we might call an emotional voice map of the people they live with, a long-term archive stored in associative memory, where your voices cross-reference with everything that happened when you used it. The gentleness in your voice when you said their name after they came out from under the bed. The calm steadiness in your voice during quiet evenings when nothing was wrong. The particular tone you use right before you feed them. These moments are filed together. Your voice becomes the emotional anchor of their world. In one study at the University of Tokyo, researchers used behavioral observation to show that cats respond differently to their owner's voice versus a stranger's voice. And not just differently. The cats showed visible signs of recognition. Ear movement, head turning, pupil dilation when they heard their owner's voice. Even when the owner was out of sight. Your voice is neurologically registered as familiar. Your voice literally makes your cat's ears and eyes orient toward its source. This is not metaphor. This is measurable behavior. You are without knowing it. One of the most consistent emotional signals in your cat's life. Every time you speak to them, you are reinforcing a bond that is written into their daily experience. And that is both beautiful and deeply important. But recognizing your voice is only the beginning. Because what your cat does with that recognition, how they respond, how they read your emotional state and react to it, that is where things get genuinely extraordinary. Point 3, reading your emotions in real time. Scientists have a term for the musical, emotional quality of speech. The rhythm, the intonation, the rises and falls of your voice independent of actual words. It's called prosody. And research confirms that cats are capable decoders of human prosody, though they respond to it differently than dogs do. Think about how you instinctively speak to a kitten or to your cat when they're nervous. Your pitch rises slightly. Your rhythm becomes softer and more soothing. Your voice takes on a melodic quality. This is a universal human response to vulnerability. And cats register this shift. When you use this tone with your cat, they are more likely to slow blink, to relax their ears, to remain in place rather than retreat. Conversely, a sudden, loud, sharp tone triggers a startle response. In the feline nervous system, it resembles the acoustic signature of a hiss, a warning, a threat. This is why harsh tones cause cats to freeze or flee, even when the actual words are neutral, or even meant to be reassuring. You could say, "You're safe, sweetheart," with a loud, tense voice, and your cat will flatten their ears and disappear. You could whisper, "Hey, you ridiculous little gremlin," with warmth and softness, and they will curl their tail around themselves and slow blink back at you. They are not evaluating your vocabulary. They are evaluating your emotional signal. And what makes this even more remarkable is that cats don't just react to your voice. They actively monitor your emotional state over time. Research from Oakland University showed that cats can distinguish between different human emotional expressions, and they adjust their behavior accordingly. They are more likely to approach a smiling owner and more likely to keep their distance from an angry or tense one. They are building a live emotional model of you, updated in real time. Every moment they spend in your presence. This means that when you are anxious, your cat knows before you said a single word. Your body language has shifted. Your breathing has changed. The rhythm of your movements is different. And because cats are territorial animals who depend on environmental stability for security, your emotional state directly affects their sense of safety. They respond, they might move to a higher vantage point. They might groom themselves to self-soothe. They might sit and watch you with an intensity that feels almost like concern. You are the center of their territory. And when the center is unsettled, they feel it. This is not something you can hide or mask. Every time you exist anxiously or peacefully around your cat, you are communicating. The question is just what you're saying. But while all of this tells us how they receive your emotion, the other side of the conversation, how they answer you, is something most cat owners have never fully understood. Point 4, how your cat answers you without words. Communication between you and your cat is not a monologue while you are talking. Your cat is answering you constantly in a language that is mostly invisible to people who haven't learned to read it. Let's start with the slow blink. You've seen it 1,000 times. You're looking at your cat, and they close their eyes slowly. Hold them closed for a beat, then open them again with soft eyes. Researchers and feline behaviorists have documented that the slow blink is a cat's most deliberate signal of trust and contentment. In the wild, a cat who closes their eyes in the presence of another animal is making themselves vulnerable. They are saying, I trust you enough to turn off my primary defense system. When your cat slow blinks at you, they are not sleepy. They are communicating. They are choosing vulnerability with you. Then there is the tail, an emotional barometer that most humans only half read. A tail held straight up, with a slight curve at the tip like a question mark, is a greeting signal, a friendly acknowledgement. A tail that is puffed up indicates fear or startle response. A tail that is lashing back and forth rapidly is not the same as a dog's wag. It indicates overstimulation or irritation. And a tail wrapped around your leg or arm is a gesture of affiliation, a claiming, a marking of you as safe territory. The tail is not random movement. It is a directional, emotional signal that you can learn to read. Then there is the purr, the most misunderstood sound in the feline vocabulary. We think of purring as pure contentment. And often it is, but cats also purr when they are injured, when they are giving birth, when they are stressed or in pain. Research has shown that the purr operates at a frequency between 25 and 150 hertz, a range that has been documented to promote tissue regeneration and bone healing. The purr may serve a self-soothing and even self-healing function when your cat purrs while you're talking to them. Especially if you're upset, they may be trying to calm both of you. They are answering your distress with a frequency designed to heal. And then there is what cats do. That is perhaps their most vulnerable form of response. The exposed belly, when a cat rolls onto their back in front of you. Belly up, most vulnerable organs exposed. This is not always an invitation to touch. It is a display of trust. A statement that says, I am showing you the part of me I protect from everyone else. When your cat does this while you're speaking softly, they are not being cute for attention. They are participating in the conversation. They are answering your vulnerability with their own. They are saying, I feel safe enough with you to be defenseless. And I genuinely want to know, has your cat ever done something while you were talking to them that felt like they understood exactly what you were feeling? Because those moments are more common than people admit. And what's behind them is genuinely surprising. Point 5. The truth about feline empathy. There is an old and deeply unfair stereotype about cats that they are cold, that they are aloof and indifferent, that their emotional responsiveness is purely transactional, food in exchange for tolerance, that what looks like affection is really just a very effective manipulation strategy. This is wrong, and the science is increasingly clear about why. Cats are socially and emotionally complex animals whose bonds with humans are real, measurable, and deeply felt, not despite their independent nature, but alongside it. Unlike dogs who are actively domesticated by humans, cats domesticated themselves. Roughly 9,000 years ago, they chose to live near human settlements because the grain stores attracted rodents, and rodents were food. The cats that thrived in this new niche were not the ones who learned to obey commands. They were the ones who could tolerate human proximity, who could read human patterns, and who could form stable, non-threatening relationships with different species. Tolerance became connection. Connection became something deeper. The result is an animal with a unique form of cross-species social intelligence that continues to be underestimated. In 2019, a study published in Current Biology found that cats form secure attachments to their human caregivers using the same attachment tests developed for human infants. The researchers found that approximately 65% of cats displayed secure attachment behaviors, seeking comfort from their owner when stressed and using their owner as a secure base from which to explore. This is the same attachment pattern observed in human infants and in dogs. Cats bond, they attach, they depend emotionally, they just express it differently. A subsequent study at the University of Oregon showed that cats exposed to their owner's stress through voice and behavior showed measurable changes in their own behavior. They became more vigilant, more likely to stay close to the owner, and more responsive to the owner's emotional cues. They were not just detecting your emotion, they were adjusting to it. They were aligning their state with yours. This is emotional attunement, and it is one of the foundational building blocks of what we understand. As empathy and cats do it across species boundaries, with the humans they have chosen as their own. When you are having a hard night and you sit on the floor and start talking, and your cat comes and sits nearby, or curls up just within reach, or slow blinks at you from across the room, they are not indifferent. They are not waiting for food. They are doing something ancient and genuine. They are choosing to remain in proximity to your pain. Because for a cat, who could be anywhere in the house, anywhere at all, choosing to be in the room with you when you are falling apart is the choice that matters. Their empathy is not demonstrative, the way we sometimes expect comfort to look. It is quiet, steady, and spatial. It is a warm presence on the edge of your peripheral vision. It is a pair of eyes that hold your gaze, then close slowly. It is the sound of purring in a dark room. And that kind of presence, the kind that simply stays, is one of the most profound forms of comfort that exists. But for this empathy to fully express itself, there is an infrastructure that must be in place first. And that infrastructure is built every single day through rituals so ordinary you almost don't notice them. Point 6, routine ritual and the architecture of safety. Cats are at their emotional core creatures of pattern. Their sense of security, their fundamental ability to feel safe and stable in their territory is built not primarily on rules or training, but on predictability, on the reliable repetition of events that tell them this is how the territory works and it is safe. Think about the rhythms of a cat's day. The morning routine, the sound of your feet on the floor, the opening of the blinds, the first shaft of sunlight that hits their favorite spot, the feeding time, bracketed by the specific sound of the cabinet, and the particular way you call them to their bowl, the evening ritual, the change in light as the sun sets, the different quality of your voice as you settle into the couch, the familiar smell of your evening routine, the way you always sit in the same spot, These are not just events. They are the pillars of your cat's psychological territory. Each one is a data point that confirms the environment is stable. My routine is intact. I am secure, and your voice, the sound of it, the specific emotional texture of it, at each moment in these rituals, is woven into every single one of them. When you say good morning to your cat, in that particular soft morning voice, you are not just greeting them. You are activating a memory emotion complex that reaches back to every morning that came before it. You are reminding their nervous system, this is real. This is consistent. This is territory unchanged. Research on feline stress and behavior reveals something that is both revealing and deeply practical. Cats are exquisitely sensitive to environmental disruption. A change in routine, a new piece of furniture, a guest staying over a different work schedule. Any of these can trigger stress behaviors, hiding over grooming litter box avoidance. And when the disruption passes, when the routine is restored, when your voice returns to its normal patterns, and the day resumes its familiar shape, that is not just relief. That is restoration. That is the territory rebuilding itself around the sound of you. The cat who emerges from under the bed, who resumes their spot on the couch, who headbutts your hand. That is not just a return to normal. That is a reaffirmation of safety. The pattern has been restored. The rhythm is back. The territory is secure. You are not just a person to your cat. You are the most stable feature in their environment. When you speak, you are not just making noise. You are maintaining the acoustic architecture of a world. They depend on... And this brings us to the final question. The one that has been quietly underneath all of this from the beginning. Point 7. What your cat is really thinking when you talk to them. We've come a long way. We've looked at the auditory science of how they process your voice, the recognition studies that confirm they know when you're speaking to them, the evolutionary history that shaped their unique form of social intelligence, the attachment research that confirms they bond securely, and the ritual architecture that makes your voice the sound of stability. So now, what are they actually thinking? The honest answer is that cats do not think in sentences. They don't construct verbal narratives or run internal monologues. Their experience of the world is almost certainly more immediate and sensory and spatial than ours. Less abstract, more present, more purely felt. But that doesn't mean nothing is happening. When you lean close to them and speak softly, their mind is likely generating something that, if we could translate it, would approximate, this is the voice, the familiar voice. The territory is stable. I can rest. When you come home after a long day and say their name, with that specific softness you only use for them, what registers in that brain is probably closer to the pattern is restored. The center is back. When you're crying on the floor and they choose to be in the same room, or curl up nearby, or slow blink at you from their spot, they are likely not thinking anything analyzable. They are feeling the shift in the atmosphere, the disruption in the normal rhythm. And something in them, something that 9,000 years of coexistence shaped, responds the only way it knows how. With proximity, with stillness, with the steady unwavering. I am here. The deepest truth here is the conversation you have with your cat is not happening in language. It's happening in presence, in the shared space you occupy together. When you are fully present with each other, you speaking softly, honestly, them orienting every available sense in your direction, reading you completely, responding with everything they have. And maybe that is why people who love cats have always described their relationship as something different from any other bond. Not because cats speak our language. They don't. But because they speak something older and more honest. They speak the language of chosen proximity, of quiet attention, of trust that doesn't require demonstration. When you talk to your cat, they are not confused or dismissive. They are listening with everything they are. They just answer. In a register, most people never learn to hear. And if you want to understand what your cat is, saying back to you, in their body, in their behavior, in the things they do, when they think you're not watching, that is exactly what we explore next time on Feline Mind.